Now, as it's said in occultism, as above, so below. And the reason why that was mentioned and is mentioned so much is because it's also the way that sorcerers or dark magicians figure out how the higher things work. Okay. So it's a direct reference to, hey, if we can understand any part of this, then we can see it from the entire spectrum. So now let's go to Hollywood very briefly, because we have to bring it into something in modern times that everybody has got to understand. Now, we know that Hollywood is run by occultists. If you don't know that by now, you probably should give up this life and just go chill out, go relax on a Tempur-Pedic bed, wait till you kick off and then try to start it up again and then go at it again, because you need to know where this is coming from, is what I'm saying. So media is the number one occultist. The TV is the Black Mirror, okay? It's the scrying box. So at this stage, then let's now assume that those that are writing these scripts and working with this equipment and stuff in Hollywood are all adepts, the ones that especially behind the scenes. And when you accept that, then you may learn how magic works. We have to have some version of it working that we can draw parallels to now. We also know that Aleister Crowley, who is the OTO of the Golden Dawn, basically those who study the Dark Tantra, was very influential in starting Hollywood and writing a lot of the scripts to do the rituals that were necessary to bring about breaking guardian bounds, like basically taking entire areas and removing the guardians from those areas so those areas can be used continuously to do things that would normally not be done in the order. So what I'm referring to here is that Hollywood became a place where dark magic could be practiced to affect the masses. But what had to be created was like a microcosmic version of how the world works. Okay? And it has to be so on point, so exact. It has to be able to even affect the world of the person it's being projected to. So to be very clear, each person is a world. So to create another world and to place it inside of somebody else, in effect, allows another world to start to begin inside of them. This is what Hollywood specializes in. So now I first want to take you to the equipment, because this is occult equipment that is first used. Now, the projector. Okay, now we've learned what projecting is. But the projector in itself, if we understand its original origin, has something in it called the film. Okay, and the film is made from cellophane. Okay, or celluloids. In fact, film used to just be called celluloids. Pass me the celluloids, not pass me the film. And it's because in science, which is their first religion, Zionists, what was discovered is the film that's actually around stars, like what is the next substance that is right on stars, is actually cellophane. That cellophane, or what you even call plastic, but an organic polymer, is exactly what's around stars. Okay? So somebody said, well, how do they know that knowledge? Somebody said, well, they never went to space. What are you talking about? Some may get into an argument about it. But as I said, as above, so below. They examine what stars really are. What stars really are, many of them are actually mirrors of trees. Okay? Especially the fixed stars. They're mirrors of trees. So when they studied trees and plants and leaves, they noticed that the leaves were mostly made of cellophane, this hyperactive polymer that reacted to UV light and actually was able to produce energy and even some kind of essence off of ultraviolet light, which is what plants do with the sun. And so it was summarized, which is also true, that the stars that you're seeing out there, the first bubble that's around them is cellophane. Okay, now I'm just bringing this to your attention because now then, with this material cellophane, it makes sense then that if that is our strip of film and we put these stars in the negative, because remember, these are also called negatives. So we put these stars like John Wayne and Marilyn Monroe onto this strip of cellophane, and we then project with light this through a cathode ray tube, which is shaped like a hexagram, into the person's mind that's actually watching this using 1,000 points of light. That's an angelic reference, millions of points of light. Then in effect, we can actually send an entire world into their mind. Okay? So when I say the film, anytime in this conversation, you should understand that what I'm referring to is that it's an actual layer that starts to become created that separates you from what's really going on. Now, this was also taken from, because remember, this is not their invention. This was taken from that nature does this also. It's like her way of kind of soothing her children. She puts a film over their eyes to kind of shield them from darker things that happened at a certain time. So I'm going to explain this. When you die, if you haven't made the breakthrough yet and you haven't like knocked down the tunnel to yourself, there are all these doors, films, if you may, that are separating you from the past life. And every time you die, that door is closed. And there's like a film or a separation that's between you and the last life. And it's hard to either get through that film, see through that film. That's why you don't know much about your past life. It's hard to break through that film. Okay? So this is what I mean by when someone can be dragged through worlds, is that every time something stops and begins and there's a film in between it, this basically makes it like a separation for a person. Now, I'm going to make it even more clear, especially for those who like symbolism. If you notice when you look at a shell in the ocean, the ones that spiral and fly, there are these little parts in each, little separations in each part. It's like where the calcium builds up, forms a wall, and the wall becomes the structure that builds the next case. Okay? And that's why a shell generally has these separations in it, and you can't put your hand all the way through it because it actually has like little films that separate it. So when they call it a breakthrough, what they're referring to is somehow you gain the ability to knock down all of those doors, down the tunnel of phi, back to your original origins, to the original awareness of yourself, and you're able to connect your end to your beginning, your alpha to your omega. At that point, you become hypersentient. And until then, you exist with these films or layers blocking you from the past life and blocking you from the awareness of what happens after death and what happened to grandma, what happened to grandpa, what happened to great-great-grandma, what happened to your son, what happened to your dog. That place that they are is on the other side of the film, okay? We call it outside of time, okay? So what Hollywood has done is Hollywood has created a lot of film. Now, how you know this is phi is because now look at a film strip. Now, a film strip is exactly identical to the flat earth model. It is exactly how a projection really is. It's a disc. And the main thing to realize here is that if we took that one piece of film, which is like tape from a Hollywood strip, and then we just threw the reel, how long is that film? Super long. You ever even a tape deck, have you ever unraveled all the tape? You're just unraveling all the tape. You ever done that? It's fun, right? But what is that tape actually made out of? How is that memory being stored on that tape? Through magnets, right? That somehow this film and these magnets is storing memory. Where are they getting this stuff from? You think they're inventing this stuff? They're thieves. They don't invent anything. They're not original. That's why they're dying, because they're not original. Only things that die are things that are not original. Anything that is original will exist forever. So they're in the world of death because they are refusing to accept certain levels of knowledge. They're aware of how it works, but they don't want to accept that. So what I'm getting at here is that real that you're looking at, look what they call it, real. This is what I'm saying about etymology. It could be simple etymology. It could be complex etymology. But now you got this real with these stars on it and this film in negative. And it's all phi because it's a spiral. And now the entire life or the entire movie is wound up on this reel. And it's just waiting to get played so that it can be projected into another being's consciousness. And when we realize again that these are the deepest levels of magic, you may just see this as like, well, that's just technology. No, this is how magic really works. And this is how worlds are projected into a person's mind. So then we go further and we find that there's a story that is continuously retold over and over again in the movies that you love. Now there's fill-ins, movies that you may not feel that was the greatest movie, but there's these movies that you really love. And they wrote a book one time and it was called, it's about the necessary characters that have to be in a story. So just as I told you before about sorcery and those kind of things, really storytelling, there's necessary characters that have to be there. And you've seen that in some of the lineups of